Welcome everybody to an exciting couple of days here with CGLCC. My name is Danny Papadatos. I am the new manager of Supplier Diversity for the CGLCC. I've been in this role since November, and it's been a really, really exciting journey as we move supplier diversity forward, not only through our corporate and government agencies, but also looking as an organization as to how not only we can be more intersectional in our approach to working with other entrepreneurs, but also working within our own ecosystem, and how do we better move things forward. Before we kind of get going through today, I would like to recognize that CGLCC would like to recognize that we are gathering on the unceded traditional territory of the Mississaugas, of the New Credit, and the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the oh goodness, Haudenosaunee. I butchered that, my apologies. And the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. It is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the New Credit. CGLCC supports the truth and reconciliation of Canada's Indigenous peoples and recognizes their enduring presence and resilience in this area for thousands of years. So, as we move forward, yes, land acknowledgements, very important. So before we get going, I'd like my esteemed colleagues to introduce themselves and where they're from, utilizing their pronouns as well, and then we'll kind of get the conversation going. So,
hi everybody, my name is Javier Santos, and I'm from the House of Purpose, and I go by he, him, his.
Wonderful.
My name is Alexandra Mutinelli-Jukic, and I am a social procurement coordinator at the City of Toronto in the Purchasing and Materials Management Division. I've been there just 4 months.
Sophia Stone. I run Indie Group and Indie Tech. We do management consulting in large FI, and I go by she, her.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Swanson. I'm with Ernst & Young, and I am an assistant director in business development, and I go by she, he, she and her as well.
My name is Kathy Chang. I am the founder and president of Redwood Classics Apparel. We're an apparel manufacturer, proudly producing on Canadian soil and
your pronouns.
She.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. So, when I was first tasked, you're going to be first up there. When I was first tasked with putting together a session for this summit, one of the main conversations that happened when I was reaching out to different suppliers, some of which are in the room, was, I've gotten certified. What do I do with it? I want to become a member, but I don't really understand what you do. I've been a member for years and I'm not finding traction. How do I build? And a lot of those pieces, for me as somebody who is dipping my toes in the water and trying to understand diverse procurement and supplier diversity on my own, it was really important for me to then take a step back and say, okay, well, it's all well and good if we put on this program and we put this, we promote and we go and grab new members and we say, sign up, get certified, this is what you do. But if we don't have that follow-up piece, or because we as a Chamber of Commerce, LGBT Chamber of Commerce, are really actually just a staff of 2 peoples, how do we get the messaging out to engage people and encourage people to utilize what they have as their most valuable resource and asset, which is each other? And that's really where the topic of this conversation came from. And I was kind of gearing one way, and then I was at an event, I would say almost a month ago. And one of our panelists here actually kind of sparked some inspiration in me, and that was Kathy. When I was watching at a Staples promotional products event. And, Kathy said this one thing that always stuck with me was, your certification is essentially buying the ticket to the dance. And whether you get up and dance or not is really up to you, but you have to be asking the questions, and you proactively can't just sit on the sidelines in that chair or you're never going to dance, right? And that's really, at the bottom line of it, is the truth. And so I sat there and thought, okay, well, if that's the case, right, if I was coming in as a new supplier to Supplier Diversity, how am I going to dance? And what information would be valuable to me as a new supplier coming through the pipeline that would be getting me off to the races running right off the bat, as opposed to kind of piecing it together as we go. And so what we're hoping is that this session really ends up being, if I was a 20-year-old supplier, what would I tell my 1-year-old supplier self so that I could be successful right off the hop and take everything in my toolkit and make the most out of my certification right off the bat, as opposed to just putting a logo on a piece of paper and saying, I'm a certified diverse supplier, right? Which can tend to be some of the cases, right? When I heard different conversations coming through from different suppliers as well, I heard, I tell people that I'm certified, but that doesn't really do anything. Or these agencies know that I'm certified, but I'm not getting anything because of my certification. I'm getting it on my business. Well, how are we leveraging that information? How important and predominant is that information when you're going into a room with other certified suppliers? Yesterday, I had the privilege and honor to be part of the City of Toronto's 3rd annual Recruiting with Diverse Suppliers event. Amazing turnout, over 200 attendees from different industries in one room, working and meeting with the decision makers, the purchasers, the people that are actually going to put money in your pockets, getting the opportunity for you as a diverse supplier to get that business card of the person who actually spends the money, right? But when I look around the room, we only see some of our memberships in there. But then we're finding new members. We're finding people that are cross-service certified. Yesterday, I met 2 people that were Weeby and CAMSI certified and were part of our community and never even heard about what we are and what we do and who we are. So, really also utilizing your certification as an advocacy program, but not only for your business, but for who we are and who we love. So, when I was at that beautiful event yesterday, it was amazing. We got the opportunity to watch 3 of our diverse suppliers from CGLCC pitch for business in the afternoon. And one of the things I noticed, Javier, great at leveraging his certification, was that he predominantly displayed his CGLCC logo on his deck. And pitching to diversity-focused rooms, that's something you want to make sure you do. But then I looked at 2 others of our partnerships, and they didn't even include it in their presentation. So when we look at some of the topics we're going to talk about today is, when is it relevant to use your certification and leverage it? How is it leveraging it important, and how is that going to help us win? So there's a couple of different areas of focus that we're going to go through. We do have an hour and a half here this morning. I don't want to it's not going to be dry. This is a fireside chat. This isn't a panel. You're going to have opportunities to ask questions, engage, raise concerns or questions. We have some other fantastic people in the room. Anybody that has been certified through CGLCC also knows our amazing third-party assessor, Patricia here from Astro Equality. So for anybody that potentially may be going through the process and you have any questions, we can also set you up or have questions happen here today. But we just really wanted to have an opportunity to engage everybody in a way that we haven't done it before, and find out not only from the people who are experienced and that have been through the process, but the people that are also the decision makers that can also assist you in doing things like your pitch, your capability statement, and helping you focus a little bit more on relationship management, engagement with your chamber. So I'm going to actually start off with one of our fantastic certified suppliers, Kathy. And one of the things I asked Kathy to do because of the things that I saw at the Staples event, and Kathy is an amazing, because she's double certified with Weeby and CAMSI, is the ability to build a capability statement that's also able to pivot based on your demographic, your business, where you're going, what room you're entering in, etc. So I kind of tasked Kathy with the opportunity to talk to us about the capability statement and how to put your best foot forward through that capability statement and being able to change that. So I'll let you kind of take that away.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to try to own those kind, amazing words he's given me. So I'm going to, let's manage expectations here. So I guess I'm going to start off by, did I go the wrong way? How am I doing this wrong?
Huh?
Am I going up, down?
Is it not working?
There we go. So, it's, guys, it's really, I just wanted to show, you'll see I start off with, who we are. I mean, my logo, everything else. What I wanted to do today with everyone was kind of share with you and be vulnerable our journey with supplier diversity in terms of our capability sheet. We are WeBe certified, WeConnect certified, as well as CAMPC certified. And in 2016, this was our capability sheet. How does it look to you? Really wordy, right? It has my logo. That's it. I did my certifications, though. I was proud about that. So I'm going to go through this journey with you because this is my 2016, just a generic one. This was our 2017. We got a little bit better. We are a tier 2 supplier at best. So in the corporate space, we supply to major tier 1 partners such as Cotton Candy, which is a promotional product agency, Staples promotional product, and also Promo Shop. So we decided that, you know what, we're going to showcase them, because the biggest challenge for me when I was going to events would say, let's say EY would say, I love your sweatshirt. How can I get one on my site? And I'd be like, oh, well, I don't sell to you directly. And so we decided that we would indicate that we're a tier 2. So as you're going through procurement, they'll say, okay, well, I'm going to go through your partners to get that. Again, you'll see that we showed our diverse certifications. But we also decided, what's really important was I was told that you should show off your achievements. You should show off that you've won awards, because that's going to give you credibility. And then the other thing is, every time I would speak, they would say, and I would say, well, we're an apparel manufacturer. We've been manufacturing for major brands. It's been a 20-some-odd relationship with Roots Canada. And the buyers would say, why isn't that on your capability sheet? And so we decided to put up the different logos and to show kind of our client portfolio and give a taste of it. And again, indicated our achievements. So contact information, all that was there. And that was 2017. Then we're going to move on to 2018, and this is still a generic one. So I've kept certain aspects where we realized when I was having conversations and when we were showing our capability sheets, what was eye-catching to people? And it was really our client portfolio, because they'd be impressed that we were, we've done work, or our products have been branded with, we've branded all these type of companies. In addition, of course, our diverse certification was still there. We kept our core competencies. You'll see that, what was also really important was we started putting the year that we were established. And the reason why we did that, again, through conversation and through our journey, we learned that, corporates want to know you're not a fly-by-day night, you're not a fly-by-night company. They want to know how long you've been around. They want to know that, you're going to be around for a long time, because when you get into a contract, it's a long-term relationship, right? So this was just last year. And you know what? Through just, again, talking to different corporates and people that were buyers and what was important to them and what were the key things they were looking for, when we had an opportunity to go to WeBank last year in Detroit, which was, Detroit is all automotive, we ended up taking our capability sheet, we printed it in a card, we did a postcard, we did a 2-pager, and we spent the first page was all about our brand and retail portfolio. You'll notice the number of automotives we did. We hand selected this, so we tailored it, knowing that we were going to Detroit. And who were my buyers? The buyers were mostly automotive. And because we are a premium brand, you'll even notice, we're picking Porsche, we're picking Land Rover, Jaguar, Cadillac. So even the portfolio in terms of the brands we've touched, we kind of curate it according to who the audience was going to be. And also, what we also did was we had Staples and Shumsky who was attending that event with us. So they are our tier 1s. And so I hand selected them as well and said, hey, let's go at this together. And so when a corporation or a buyer is picking up my capability sheet, they already know who they're going to go to. A lot of these guys have contracts with them already as a tier 1. I just want to say, let me be part of your supply chain. Let me be part of that procurement, and I'm your tier 2. If you're interested in my stuff, go to these guys, and I'm happy to facilitate. Again, core competencies are there, awards are there. Here's another one. So in 2018, I'm also in the class of Accenture's DSDP program. So it's basically a mentorship program, and when you go through their program, essentially there's an opportunity where they are publishing a book, I guess you could say, like a reference book, where Accenture individuals or buyers could also look at if they were looking for something. And because it was an individual program, what we ended up doing is we were suggested to actually put a picture of me. Because part of the program, you also get to have access to executives at Accenture. And we were learning through, Accenture knowledge and classes and whatnot. So that's the reason why there's a big-ass picture of my face. Not happy about that, I can tell you. However, we think it was important because when a mentor or a buyer within Accenture, they're going through your book, when they see me, or I'm now part of the Accenture family as well, they're gonna say, hey, oh yeah, Kathy, I know what you do. And there's that connection. So we personalized it for that reason. And again, all those same things are there. And, oops, that's you, sorry.
That's your last slide?
I think there was one slide. It's okay. There was one last slide, but it's no big deal. It was just our 2019 generic, which again, it just evolved again. So I hope you guys could see how just we're being vulnerable. It wasn't great to begin with, but it was constantly evolving. Because at the end of the day, you got to remember one thing. Your business doesn't stay still, and neither should your capability sheet. Right? You got to evolve your capability sheet just as your business evolves, and it should be a reflection of that.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathy. Here, let's hear from Kathy. So there's a couple things that came up in your talk that I would love to touch further on. So the first is tiers. Is there anybody in the room that is unfamiliar with the term tier 1, tier 2, just so we can clarify that if we need to move forward? Amazing, great. Just because, yeah, sure. So actually, Kathy, if you want to talk about maybe, what the different tiers are and how, tier 1 supply, tier 2s, et cetera, and go from there.
Okay, so a corporation would be the end user buyer. So for example, EY. They are the person, or they are the company that is buying from you. The next company or who invoices you guys would be your tier 1, as an example, right? So let me use maybe automotives. That may be a little bit easier, right? So let's say GM. GM is the corporate buyer. Their tier 1 would be, let's say, Michelin tires, because they need tires. They need to procure tires in their product. So, but Michelin tires may not, they also need nooks and crannies, let's just say. So their tier 2 in that, GM supply chain would be, tier 2 would be the company that is providing the nooks and cranny for, accessories or, all that stuff, like rubber products, those things would then go into the procuring or the making of the tires for Goodyear. Did I say Goodyear or Michelin? Michelin, sorry. Michelin, who is then supplying those tires to GM.
So in relation to CGLCC, one of our corporate agencies, Kellogg's, for instance. Kellogg's is a major tier 1 supplier, and it's very hard to find entrepreneurs that can directly supply to Kellogg's. But what Kellogg's does is to advance diverse procurement and supplier diversity is they actually push it down to their tier 2 supply chain. So they ask their tier 2 suppliers to then report their diverse spend. So just because we necessarily can't find somebody within the chain to say supply enough granola or grain or even paper and cardboard straight to Kellogg's, what they then do is find the people that do those supply chains to them and force them to diversify their supply chain. What are you doing in your marketing campaigns? Are you doing any diverse spend that way? Are you bringing in any queer entrepreneurs to help you do the XXX? So that's how we utilize diverse procurement through a lot of the agencies that we not necessarily can't get through the front door, we find the side door. Okay? Dan.
I'm just going to build off of that a little bit. The other benefit to tier 1 suppliers, so sticking with the Staple example as an example, so Staple can come in and say to EY, we want to support you and we want to work with your business. We don't do embroidering. Kathy does embroidering. Kathy now falls under our umbrella as Staples because Kathy provides to us. So what's really cool is that if a tier 1 large organization doesn't have a diverse supplier that they can put their thumb on internally, they can go to someone like Kathy, for example, who specializes in something, and then Staples is now diversified because they support diverse suppliers as well. So all this to say, if you're in a room today and you're a small business owner and like the Staples of the world are too big, the benefit is that if you fall under that umbrella, you're an asset to them because you're making up you are comprising towards their diversity initiative. Does that make sense?
We bridge the gap.
Yeah, exactly. So the entrepreneurs in the room, if you want to be like me personally, I'm too small to be a tier 1 supplier. I have no desire to be. But for me to be tier 2 and 3, it's great because it gives me access to larger business, but it's an asset to that tier 1 supplier that I am there because I am certified, which then falls under their value add to their client.
We're going to get a little bit further into leveraging a little bit later on, but there's, that's a really, really great point that I'd like you to remember is, when you are small, you still have to think big. And when we look at the different people in the room that, sometimes these RFPs come through and you say, that sounds exhausting. I'm only a small business. I can't do that by myself. But then what happens is you start looking at the different networks that we create and the people that are in these different rooms, and you say, well, actually, if I was to team up with that person, we could both do that and go after that larger RFP at half the exhaustion rate, right? So we're just going to keep moving right along. Do you have a question? Sorry? Oh, you're good, June? Okay, sorry about that. We're going to move right along, and we're actually going to talk to Lindsay. And so Lindsay has actually been volunteering lately to help us also mentor with our pitch competition that's going to be taking place tomorrow, our live pitch competition. And so with Ernst & Young being the supporters of our pitch competition program, I thought it was really great to actually bring Lindsay into the conversation because she's seen a lot of our suppliers come through the pitch competitions and seeing where they're at, and really to add value as to what relevant information you want to hear or you want to put into your pitch when you're going into that room. And sometimes you have 90 seconds, sometimes you have 3 minutes, and sometimes you have 10 minutes, and really hearing about what we really need to get out and how concisely. So I'll let you kind of take that over and talk about your experience so far.
Sure.
Great.
So hi, everyone. So as Danny said, I've been involved now through the whole last year working with many of you. I recognize many people in the audience, which is awesome. And I would say everyone has a different business, everyone has a different value proposition, capability statement, everything. But the common denominator I always see and what always resonates when I hear a pitch, whether it's, again, a minute, 10 minutes, what have you, elevator, 30-second pitch, is that the element of passion and your own story that comes into it. And I know that, whether it's Peter in the back or everyone, regardless of what, logistics, batteries. I think I met you at the at Rafiq's event with the laundry balls. Sorry, I'm butchering the title of those things, but laundry balls, I'm sure, is a great term. But whatever the product is, there's a passion in the story. So when I briefly spoke with you and talked about, oh, cool, where does your product come from? You gave me so much of yourself in that, that pitch. And it wasn't a formal pitch. It was you conversing with me at a function. And then, Peter, obviously more formal, Connie, of course. And so much of yourself goes into that story. And when I hear a pitch that doesn't have that, there's a big gap. And the first thing I think of is it's missing something. And for the longest time, I couldn't figure out what some of the pitches were missing until I heard others, and I sort of stepped back and reflected on what exactly is missing and what do I need to hear to feel so compelled to whether support you, whether it's buying a product, whether it's, supporting through a different thing. And that is, your own passion and story. And I think, and I include myself in this, throughout my career, I felt so forced into a box of professionalism, and you can't bring yourself into it, you can't bring your emotion. I'm a very emotive person, and for probably the first full decade of my career, I felt as though I had to hide who I was, hide my emotion. Can't be an emotive woman, can't show that, have to put on the suit, have to, act like a white male, and I don't want to, and that's not who I am, and it was never authentic, it was never who I was. And so that, although, I'm not an entrepreneur, it's all the same. It's a common denominator, and it's being authentic, it's being yourself. I spend a lot of time thinking about things that don't matter, but they interest me, and I'm so fascinated by things like sales theory and buying preferences, and all the crazy Instagram world where they can suggest products to me based on text conversations that I really don't wish anyone was listening to, and why they're always telling me to buy adult diapers, I'll still never understand, but the point is, I find it fascinating, and it's equal parts creepy and cool that Instagram can suggest products to me. But what's funny is that even though machine learning and all the algorithms that social media is using, I still don't trust it. It's still not a person. So even though these algorithms are probably much smarter than any of my friends, if I have a friend that texts me or messages me, Lindsay, holy shit, crap, sorry, whatever, I'm gonna swear. Sorry, I go to potty mouth. Lindsay, you've gotta buy this is amazing. I don't spend the next 2 days with something in my shopping cart, unpurchased, unwilling to hit the trigger button. I don't spend the next 2 days then looking for, being super sleuth and trying to find anything on the internet that's gonna tell me or confirm to me that this is a scam and that this product's crap. No, someone tells me, Lindsay, buy this, that I trust, I'll be like, sure, buy it, check out. No buyer's remorse, nothing. So as much as we are getting smarter and smarter with technology, and as much as algorithms and machine learning are going to curate these suggestions to a consumer base, whether it's local and international, ultimately people are going to buy from people they like, and people, not a machine, not an algorithm. And so many of you in the audience that I've met and I love and I want to be best friends with, and I'm just like, yes, I will buy anything that you tell me to buy because I trust you, and whether I like what you're wearing, I like it doesn't matter. There's one little strain of likability and you sharing to me and me feeling connected to you, I am going to buy or support or do something to your business that's going to be beneficial, hopefully. And so all that to say, the pitch has to be personal. It has to be, and someone might say something different. A guy in a suit, a woman in a suit, someone in a suit might tell you something completely different. But I, as a consumer and someone who has listened to these things and has my own, opinions, whether you take them or not, I think that the most compelling pictures are the ones where you spend probably at least half the time telling me what your motivation was for creating this. The batteries, tell me why. Don't just present me a product. Tell me where it's come from, and I'm going to feel connected to that product and thereby connected to you. And I think that the strongest pitches have been, say 10 minutes. You could spend 8 minutes telling me about a story. I'll be tearing up. I will be doing everything that a woman in business shouldn't be doing, and I will be so compelled to help. So that's
Awesome.
my advice.
On that?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hijacking the space. You're right. So Krista and I were talking about this. One of her favorite books is by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. So in marketing, if you start with a compelling reason why you're doing something and not what it is that you have, your marketing message will stay throughout what you're doing. So absolutely, you always have to start with why, and you should pick up the book or watch the TED Talk or whatever, but 100% that's actually a thing. Mm-hmm. So start with why you're doing what you're doing. Make sure that you have that in your head, because it's much more compelling than what it is that you have, because chances are there's competition.
It's the difference maker, right? I think, So I worked for TD Bank as a corporate manager. I had 16 locations where I'd go around coaching to customer experience training throughout Saskatchewan. I've worked in restaurants, and I did that for about 5.5 years as a director of training and development for a large restaurant chain opening restaurants across Canada. I used to tour as a singer. I used to do all these different things. But any time that I am in any field, the difference is me. You can go to a bank, you go to any other TD bank, and you can use the same ATM, but you know the teller that you want to go to, right? Because they're that person that knows you so well that they're the difference of why you still stay at that bank. And it's no different when it comes to your pitch. Authenticity in everything we do and being genuine in everything we do should be no different when it comes to your pitch. I've sat actually in the same room as Lindsay as we've been watching these different pitch competitions. It's been really interesting to see also her reaction to some of them, because you can tell when somebody has struck a chord because of who they are. Because all of a sudden they'll leave the room, she's like, I want to do this with them, I want to do this with them, I want to do this with them. Great. And then you'll have those opportunities also where you'll see the miss, and you can just see the look on her face also where she's like, I didn't get it. I don't know where they're at. And it's because they didn't lead with who they are. Right? It didn't tell us why they got into business in the first place and why they do what they do. And authenticity, again, also should be leading into your capability statement. As we're starting to wrap things back together, being authentic in your capability statement and leading with, especially if you're going into a room for a pitch as a diverse supplier, right? Lead with your diversity. If there's nothing, I've seen some pitches, especially in a room for diverse suppliers, where you're not leading with your diversity and who you are, which is, to me, one of the biggest missteps. The reason you are in that room is because of your certification. So start with it. Start with your story. Tell us who you are. Tell us who your pronouns are. They want to hear those things, because that's actually what got you there in the first place. Amazing.
I'll just add the authenticity and being genuine. In my experience, once you've led with that, building a relationship is so bloody easy after that, right? Because you feel connected. I'm very relationship centric, but at the same time, I struggle with some people who won't give me anything, and I don't think that anyone in this room would fall into that bucket. But I've spent 99% of my career in the Big Four accounting, and it's a tough area, right? They're tough nuts to crack in those big buildings and those big firms. But I've embraced, again, nothing that anyone has ever given me in terms of feedback. I've rejected it and said, no, I'm going to lead with who I am, and I'm not going to be in this box of professional woman, as the 60-year-old mentors that I've had have told me. It's just a different world, and it's a different approach, being authentic and leading with yourself as opposed to your business. But as soon as you lead with yourself, your business just follows immediately, and then the relationship flows from there. It's just
Absolutely.
so easy.
Well,
Sales have totally changed.
Yeah.
When you're being authentic,
go ahead.
being authentic, you're also being vulnerable. And when you're being vulnerable, you're a human being. And at the end of the day, every basic denominator of any business relationship is human.
Yeah. 100%. And I mean, when I think even of some of the stories that are in this room and some of the people that I've met in this room, Jack, I'm sorry to keep pointing you out, but Jack, for instance, is one of our brand new youth entrepreneur mentees. So the story between Jack and I is I actually was walking through a flea market over in Trinity Bellwoods and just doing some shopping, because that's what I do to de-stress, and I buy everything. And so when I was at the flea market and I ran into Jack, and all of a sudden Jack told me the story of them making their dryer balls with their grandmother, and how they've been making them since they were 9 years old and learned how to make them from their grandmother. And I just immediately fell in love with Jack. It wasn't I was like, I've never even used a dry ball before in my life, but like, sure, that sounds great. But you're amazing and I want to do everything I can for you. And since then has now been able to now engage in a whole new network, has joined our Youth Entrepreneur Program, today took part in our Trans and Non-Binary Committee meeting, is working and expanding their business, just got a large contract through different opportunities of meeting with some of our diverse suppliers through here to now go and be a large vendor at the CNE. So it's interesting, and the whole point of that is it's not a matter of who you're just talking to directly, it's also about the people that are listening in the room, because you don't know what's going to resonate. And so by leading with authenticity, you're not leaving anything, you're leaving everything on the floor and you're not leaving it in your bag.
I think that's another, so Jack and the laundry balls continue to be a topic here. But what's interesting is your story about the laundry balls, my story about the laundry balls. In neither of those situations, it was a formal pitch. In both those situations...
It's conversation.
Yeah, it's a conversation. You didn't know who I was, I didn't know who you were, walked up to your booth, asked about your laundry balls, and bought the laundry balls. It's saying, not requiring them, but wanting to buy them because I love your story and they're cute. And granted, my son uses them literally as balls, and that's a problem, but I think he calls them his softballs, which as a 3-year-old it's fine, but that term should probably not be used in the future. But yeah, so I think that, again, the common thing there, again, not formal pitch, but you smashed it in terms of bringing your authentic self and that bit, and you touched Danny and I, so separately. So great.
I mean, we're going to leave that alone. Yeah. We're going to move on next. Yes, Dan.
Softball is the word.
I have one really quick question before we move on about authenticity, because it's amazing and I love it and it's beautiful. With that said, we talk about the big 4 accounting firms. We talk about the Navy suit uniform that many of us will be walking into. Like, I've stood in the boardroom at Visa before, a lot of mahogany and navy happening in there, which is great. A lot of us in this room are not... We do not appear in the same way that many people in a corporate environment would. Maybe it's what we wear, maybe it's our gender identity, maybe it's the way that we identify. I love the message of be your authentic self. My question for our lovely guests from City of Toronto, EY, how is it that when I, not fitting in that environment, maybe feeling uncomfortable and intimidated, and again, back in, I am not one of this environment, how is it that I make the connection with the people that I'm with, or find my safe space within that place so that I can be my authentic self in an environment that may be uncomfortable for me?
I'm going to take a stab at that question. So authenticity is very important. There's one thing that you said that made me reflect, because maybe a year ago I would agree with how the corporate environment so unfitting for us. I've had a lot of recent experiences that have been very surprising about how quickly the corporate environment is changing. So I think if there is time to put our face out there and be authentic and show them that this is not just a white heterosexual male game anymore, it's now. I mean, I run a company where we talk about emotions at work. And I've had meetings with large corporations in the US with older white heterosexual guys who I think they're just gonna look funny at me when I talk about working with emotions at work, and they love it. So they're very open to do business with gays, Latinos, all minorities. They're just finding the way. Most of us are still kind of small for them, but the gap is closing. So I would say, don't be afraid to bring that authenticity, because it comes through and they want it.
Can I say something else?
No, I think for me personally, I just also want to add that each of you are role models. You're scared, you feel vulnerable, but at the same time, when you have that courage to speak up, I can tell you, I know for a fact that I am not the same woman that I was 5 years ago. I don't like speaking on stage, I do admit that, but I'm embracing it because I need to constantly put myself in uncomfortable situations so I can grow. Why? Because I don't look like everyone else, because I may not speak like everyone else. And I have to credit EY because you want to talk about authentic pitches and whatnot. I went to an EOY event, had no idea what it was. You know, you talk about suits, and it was at Steam Whistle. I don't know why I got invited. I just went and I showed up, and I was in a denim shirt with a beanie, tights, high boots, and did not fit in. And they just kept asking me, well, what do you do? And I used to say, I just make clothes. I make t-shirts. But through just going through the programs, through Supplier Diversity, and all the great development programs that are available through the corporations, you guys have to understand, we're in this room, we have this event because of the corporates. This is all corporate sponsored. So if we want to pay it forward, I personally think that we all need to be role models and be uncomfortable. So then this room can be 10 times bigger and we can have more impact. That really is what, in my personal opinion, Supplier Diversity can do for us.
Sophia?
For all intents and purposes, I should be not sitting in the room with the treasurer of Royal Bank. I'm a poor kid who comes from nothing, single parent, and I do it, and I work with them. Like, banks are my clients. And the more I lean in to who I am, the more authentic I become, and the faster my business is growing. There's a reason I'm sitting here right now, and it's crazy. It's crazy, but I was like, I don't know if I want to certify with the CGLCC. I have so much privilege, guys, because I pass. And that's a really big thing to have in a corporate space. I acknowledge that fully. However, it kind of, you know, if it's not going to be me, who's it going to be? So I kind of had to be like, you know, if I lose clients, is that the client I really want to work with? Or would I rather make 5 more clients who want to work with me because I'm a mo? You know, like, so I think the more I've leaned in to being like out there, being like, I'm working with the CGLCC, I'm doing this is who I am, can we work together? The more authentic it feels, the more vulnerable it feels, and the more people will gravitate towards you. So I just think that it's so worthwhile, and I know that it was a corporate question, and you heard from the suppliers, but all of us are saying lean into being who you are and own the shit out of it.
Yeah. I also recognize that I am a white cis gay male, and so I don't know, for those of you that don't know me, I grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and I was and I was a past chair of the Pride Festival there for 5 years. And one of my biggest things was, I grew up a chubby little Greek kid in a Greek Orthodox family, not allowed to talk about who I was, always changing pronouns about the people who I was interested in or dating, and was terribly in the closet. And when I moved back from Vancouver and ended up taking over the Pride Festival in Saskatoon, I said, that's it. I'm a gay or bust, right? So, one of the things I did when I took over the Pride Festival is I took my beautiful, brand new Ford Flex SUV and I put rainbows, I deckled rainbows all over it for the Pride Festival, because what I was doing for work was I was working for a sports bar chain, Boston Pizza Canada, and I took that rainbow mobile to every small town in Saskatchewan and go to work and just pull up in my rainbow car that had glitter all over it, getting in there, it was like blaring music, getting fingers on the highway, waving back, right back, and smiling, throwing glitter at the car. It was, because, and the reason I say this is because the more we are in their face with that beautiful rainbow, the less threatening it becomes. And the more you are in the room as your authentic self, the less we stand out as being the sore thumb. Okay, we're going to keep moving. So let's talk. Sorry, Peter, yes, my friend.
I just wanted to make one more comment on Jack, actually.
Jack, let's go to chair for Jack.
Let me tell you something here. We're talking about authenticity, and I had 2 conversations with Jack on the phone, and when they were talking about the product, they were talking about all the technical special things that are done to create the product. it was an authentic story, but it was not the story about the 9-year-old grandmother. So I believe that Jack has taken something from Kathy's playbook of pivoting, making sure that the story is relevant to whoever's listening to it. So part of authenticity is, yes, be your honest self, but you have to remember who you're talking to. So you have to engage that person in the right story. And you can still do that and be authentic.
That's amazing. Thank you. That's a very, very good point. Because the audience it's a big piece. Connie, do you have something to add to that? You don't need a microphone. You're fine? Yeah. Actually, neither does Peter. I was shocked.
I know, right? Who's louder? It's going to be hard to pick.
I can't wait to see that competition.
I have an example that where I was very authentic, and it led to a lot of business that I wasn't expecting. So I was at an event at NATE, which is the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, and I happened to be wearing my CGLCC pin, and someone said, "Oh, what's your pin?" I said, "Certified Homo," and so they like, "Whoa!" And two things happened. One, it made, because I was vulnerable first, it allowed them to be vulnerable. So I have a very technical product, so they were suddenly very comfortable saying, "Okay, I'm not sure I understand this. Can you explain it to me more?" Which can be a really difficult thing to do, especially in a technical environment, because everybody wants to be the expert. But it ended up leading to, I got featured in their magazine. I got several new clients. I got asked to come and speak in a few classrooms, just because I started out with, "Hi, I'm certified homo." I mean, that was bold, but that's who I am, and that ended up leading to lots of really good stuff. So I 100% agree.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing that story.
Friends in the audience, I did not bring this microphone from home, just for me. So if you have a question, please put your hand up, or if you're behind me, my name is Dan, just tap me on the shoulder or grab me.
Love you. Thanks, Dan.
So I'm here in the capacity of allyship because I work in the diversity inclusion space. I have decades in procurement experience, and my intention is I have to be an ally to people who are in different diversity inclusion spaces, therefore I have to show up to these type of events to learn, to be able to share with all my procurement mentees as to how to approach diversity inclusion in a more innovative, open-minded way. So my question is as an ally, can you speak to some things that is really important for our ally to know so that they can model the behavior or share the insights with other people who are too afraid to ask, too afraid to show up in a space, too afraid to, they're still, they don't know how to be more open in their being, and if you can speak to allyship and how to do it well, maybe, I would appreciate that.
We have a lot of diversity.
I can try to answer that. I think the message is the same, right? That it's about being who you are, and it's not about emulating one way of being all through and through the business. And it's not only on how you behave in meetings or interviews or the type of people you recruit, it's also the suppliers that you use and the examples that you use in meeting rooms and the type of food you bring to celebrations and how you celebrate. So it just changes everything. So I think as an ally, it's just supporting that message and owning your own diversity and saying, because I'm a female, if you identify as female, this is how I think, I should bring my full self to work. And you'll deal with conflict of someone else not understanding, right? I think we just have to, own it. So the more you are yourself, the more you're helping me.
This is where I get political.
She's putting down the coffee cup, ladies and gentlemen. We're in for a treat.
Systematic oppression is real. I think it's really, really important to know how the system oppresses people with all these different identities, and also look at it from an intersectional lens. So I don't think there is one way to be an ally, because there are so many different ways that the system is oppressing marginalized people. So I think being there, showing up, having that conversation, but also being willing to take on emotional labor for other people who may be kind of the where it's directed towards. I really think that's a really big thing in my kind of, what frustrates me is having to take on emotional labor when I'm talking about systematic oppression a lot. But I know this is a big business function, so I won't go too into it. But really, I think it's important to understand how systematic oppression, works, and how we can, as a group, dismantle that.
From my perspective in the corporate culture, what being an ally means to me and where I think I can help in moving that dial is to encourage my peers, my colleagues, and give them, arm them with the baseline information that is going to make them feel less scared to offend. Because I don't believe that anyone I work with has any mean-spiritedness or intends to offend. In fact, I think as Canadians and Canadians within a professional environment, everyone is very frightened to say the wrong thing. So, and I'm constantly learning, I'm very happy to share my vulnerability. So, I'm okay with that. So I'm okay with exposing my vulnerability and saying, Danny, I don't know, I'm not comfortable in that. I don't want to offend. Like, can you give me some direction? Or saying to anyone like that, like on the side, and then taking that information and spreading it. So throwing that out to my colleagues, like, hey, example yesterday had someone in who identifies as two-spirited. I didn't know what that was. I did my homework, figured it out. I had a bunch of colleagues in the room that were going to meet him, and I shared that information with them ahead of time, saying, hey, FYI, just giving them the baseline information so that they know what to say, what is appropriate to say. Because, again, people, they want to be an ally. There's so many people that are desperate, not desperate, they're really passionate about being an ally. They just don't want to F it up. And they don't want to offend with something that it's not ignorance, they just don't know. They're desperate for the information and there's nowhere to find it. So that's what I try to do as an ally, and that's the only thing I can suggest to you, again, in that corporate context. And I think it's a very easy, kind of actionable thing to do.
One more point before we move on to Alexandra that I'd like to make is allyship to me is just like dietary restrictions, right? So, and as we were just talking about authenticity and saying, showing up as your authentic self in a room is the most important thing that you can do. And the best way to break down that barrier of you sticking out like a sore thumb is to make a room full of sore thumbs, et cetera. It's the same thing as allyship. If you see that somebody's not represented in the room, what are you doing as an ally to make sure that that person is in the room? Just like dietary restrictions, if you know that you're inviting a bunch of vegetarians over and all you're cooking is steaks, you're missing the point, right? And so if you're constantly holding a diverse supplier event, I have to say I'm extremely proud of this room right now. This is probably the most diverse and intersectional room that I've seen at a CGLCC event, so that makes me very excited. But how are we going to move forward and gain perspective if we always have the same voices at the table? And if you are a corporate partner or if you're a corporate ally, what are you doing to ensure that those voices are sitting at the same table as you and or sitting at the same table as the people that you're trying to change their perspective of, right? And I think that can be something for you to take away with you.
Well,
lovely.
I'm just going to add really quickly, the other thing that I think we consistently forget is that I think it's amazing that we proactively do our research. There is another human sitting at the other side of the table from you. This person is used to the world maybe not understanding how to engage in a way that they identify or they feel comfortable. The best conversations I've had are over a cup of coffee with the people who I've met at CGLCC who do not identify with traditional gender roles. And I've had the opportunity to sit down and say, what is your experience like? Tell me your story. My friend Matthew here is a tailor. He's here because he wants to meet non-binary and trans people so that he can help create suits for them so that they feel amazing walking into a room. His question was, how do I go about doing that? I said, I have no idea. It has not been my experience. Come to this event, meet the people who have had that experience, and let them tell you what they need from you and your business in order for them to feel safe and welcome and supported. So the other thing is it's amazing that we all do our research and we do due diligence and we want to be proactive, but let's remember that the whole purpose of this is the dialogue, and you're going to get more learning out of that dialogue to supplement that research that you've done.
Great. Thanks, Dan. So like I said yesterday, I had the amazing opportunity to attend the 3rd annual Supplier Diversity event that the City of Toronto put on. And, Alexandra has been an amazing resource for me since I started in this role, because there's so much to, especially working with the city with so many different divisions, that a lot of people don't know. And so what I wanted to do is provide Alexandra an opportunity to discuss some of the key initiatives that not only City of Toronto is doing, but also the advocacy that City of Toronto is doing, because they're actually working with other municipalities like City of Vancouver to hopefully move things forward so that this supplier diversity is ingrained also within our municipalities across the country. And so, their event yesterday was a huge event, over 200 suppliers, smashing success. Congratulations. Fantastic. Javier had an amazing pitch there yesterday, so congratulations on that. It was awesome. So Alexander, I guess, I know you brought a slide along with you, so I'd love for you to talk about some of the key opportunities and a lot of things that people don't know about working with the city, and if you could kind of just bridge those gaps and educate some of these fine folks.
Absolutely. So I'm going to actually stand up just because there are some numbers and stuff, and I don't want to have to crane my neck. So maybe I'll just move over here.
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
So I think it's really great that I'm actually following Lindsay's presentation because, as Danny had mentioned, we held our 3rd annual Networking with Diverse Suppliers event yesterday at the City of Toronto. And we had, as he said, over 225 tickets. They sold out. We actually had a wait list. We had 26 city divisions representing booths at this event, with 2 staff hosting each booth. So much better than the previous year, where I think we had about 100 and some odd diverse suppliers in 19 city divisions. So from that perspective, it was great. We added another element to it this year, which is we held a pitch session. Because one of the things that we've been hearing from a lot of the city divisions is that there are no diverse suppliers with certain competencies or capacities or operating in certain fields around technical and professional services. So we really sort of matchmaked, I guess you could say, these diverse suppliers that provided professional, administrative, or technical services with city division decision makers to be in that room. We had 22 certified diverse suppliers pitching at this event yesterday. Javier from the House of Purpose was one of them, and I don't know if there was anyone else.
I think I see Uphouse.
Uphouse?
Uphouse. Uphouse in the house. Yes.
All right. So I think that everything that Lindsay said about pitching, I wish that we had her a month ago to help support some of our diverse suppliers in their pitch. Some people did incredibly well. I think, like was mentioned, you could really tell the difference between somebody who was prepared and was polished and engaged the audience, and then, unfortunately, if you're somebody who followed that, who wasn't prepared or didn't really prepare a good presentation, it really, looks even worse than it would have if you had sort of, gone after somebody that was not good. And I think one of the things that I'm learning, so I've only been at the City of Toronto for just over 4 months, so I'm very new to this inner workings of procurement. So I hope we're not going to get too many technical questions, but I'll do my best. Is I should not be the one working harder than the supplier to try and get business with the City of Toronto. Right? And so sometimes that's kind of where I feel I'm at. And with the pitch session, I'm going to be very honest, it was no difference. I had people send me a very low resolution logo, and that was it. That was their pitch. That was what was on the board while they were pitching. People who didn't even know they were going to present just suddenly said, "Oh, I'm going to be the one presenting." It's like this is such a tremendous opportunity to get in front of key decision makers at the City of Toronto, which procures $2.6 billion worth of goods and services. And these people have taken the time out of their very busy days, as have the suppliers, to meet with you. And to think that you couldn't find the time to prepare at least a high resolution logo at the bare minimum, and I had to be the one constantly saying, are you gonna, is there anything that I can put on the slide while you're pitching? So I think that's really something I just wanna make clear is there are like tens of thousands of suppliers on the city's list, and 22 of them were given an incredibly unique opportunity to pitch to people who were genuinely interested and invested in the supplier diversity component. And anyways, yeah, so I think when we do it again, we're going to have a much higher standard, a bar that will have to be met to ensure that we optimize those 90 seconds to their maximum. I will say, Javier and Up House were not in the subcategory, so fantastic. I did also notice, like, what really seemed to engage a lot of the folks is there was one supplier who actually brought like a very tactile object that that could actually be passed around the room, so that it wasn't just conceptual. Like, people could actually see it and play with this. It was bed, awesome. Like a bed bug control product that was really innovative, and that really like engages people, right?
We're all children at heart. We like to play with something.
Well, I think it's just another tool that, you know, I mean, I understand Absolutely. Some people don't have, like, it's not a type of service that has a tactile thing that they can provide, but try and think of ways in which you can engage people rather than just like dialogue. I don't know.
One of the things,
I'm not a pitch expert. Lindsay probably has a whole bunch of other things to say, but that was just from my perspective.
And just to go further to a point that you've already brought up is that, you know, the amount of work that you do to get people to do work with you. You know, supplier diversity is still quite new, right? CGLCC has been around for 16 years, going to its 17th year, and even the concept of supplier diversity is still quite foreign to a lot of people. Now, we're looking at, yesterday we saw 26 divisions of the City of Toronto in the room, right? And those are people that know about supplier diversity, and those are people that we're trying to make supplier diversity relevant still to, right? Just because they were in the room doesn't necessarily mean they look at their certified supplier list every time they're doing procurement, because sometimes they just get tired of looking at the list and not seeing the industry there that they want. So these opportunities that they put on are very important, and that's with any corporate agency that's doing a supplier diversity event. They're very important that you attend, because if you're not going to be in the room, right, you could be the difference as to why they're looking at the list and not. And so as we're moving the needle forward on supplier diversity, it's very important that you take the time to not only engage all of their portals and engage your corporate lists, but also attending these events, because we need them to start looking at the list. Because if they're not looking at the list, then what are we doing here? Right? If they're not looking at the list to look for your business or to look for other people's business because supplier diversity isn't relevant, then we become wallpaper again, right?
Right, excellent. So can we go to the next?
Yeah, let's just click this over for you. There, oh no, wrong way. There it is.
There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to explain a little bit about the City of Toronto's social procurement program. So first, very high level. It was unanimously voted in favor of by City Council in May of 2016 and fully implemented across all divisions in January of 2017. So we're now in our third year of full implementation. And there's a policy obviously in place, and basically what that policy says is that for purchases between $3,000 and $100,000, where it's an invitational request for quote, there is a requirement that each of the city purchasers invite at least 3 vendors to bid on that opportunity. There is now a policy that says you must invite 1 certified diverse supplier to those procurement opportunities. Okay, so that's incredible. So the way that process works is we manage an internal list of certified diverse suppliers. Each of the councils are responsible for uploading that list to us. It used to be quarterly, we're now doing it monthly or just ad hoc, because we feel if you've just been certified, you shouldn't have to wait 3 months before your name is put on the list. So we're willing to just take them in as they get certified. But we upload the list every month now onto the city's intranet site. So what that basically looks like currently is it's an Excel file. It has the material groups that the city uses to sort of search for the suppliers that are relevant for any procurement. Obviously, a company name, contact information, things like that. And then we also have a very brief business profile that we expect people to sort of make sure they're using like keyword searches, because often what will happen is a purchaser will go to this list and they will go first through the material group. So an example would be recruiting or staffing. We have a lot of suppliers on our list that provide that commodity. So if there's 50 diverse suppliers that come up when they filter, sometimes the next step is to filter through the business profile. So they might look for keyword searches in the business profile to shorten that list, because they only have to invite one. So it's really important that the suppliers take the time to make sure that they're putting forward a really strong business profile that speaks about the most important thing that a purchaser probably wants to know about your business, and includes keyword searches. So again, I can't tell you how many times we've received like this template back from a supplier, and the business profile says management consultant. And I'm like that's already expressed in your material group. Like that's not going to do it, right? So we actually send it back, and I think Danny probably knows this, because I'm like, can they do better than that? Like, come on, like, you know, a couple sentences at the bare minimum. I mean, we don't want like an essay, because that's obviously not the intent either. So again, so for procurement between $3,000 and $100,000, there is a requirement for the purchaser to go to this list and invite one certified diverse supplier. The only time that there is an exception is if they go to that list and there is no certified diverse supplier that provides that commodity, then they have to specify that in the SAP system. And monthly, we run reports to ensure that the purchasers are all in compliance with this policy. And if we see that there is no diverse supplier, I actually now will cross-reference that. I won't just take that verbatim. I will actually cross-reference to our master list. And if there was diverse suppliers available, I reach out to that purchaser to say, yeah, no, there were diverse suppliers available, and you're still in non-compliance because you could have invited a supplier and you didn't. So we are really working hard to make sure that people are complying with the City of Toronto's social procurement policy.
You're also quite diligent on ensuring that certifications are up to date as well, which is great, because we'll also get emails from the different divisions saying, you know, is this membership still valid or has it lapsed? And a lot of people don't realize it is your responsibility as a certified supplier to not only keep your memberships up to date and renewed, because sometimes you will fall right off of their radar if you don't ensure that you're renewing on their portals as well. With our new portal, CGLCC plug, our new membership portal will be launching shortly, where you'll also be able to upload things like your capability statement. You'll be able to put in all of your awards and accolades, but you'll also be able to update it in real time and keep it with relevant information, putting in your NACE codes as well. And you'll also renew automatically through our system as well. So we are making it easier, but that's just us. That isn't the different portals that you will be applying for as part of your certification. Sorry.
Fantastic. And I also just wanted to say, so in these monthly reports, the other thing that we get to see is, so that we see the 3 vendors that have been invited to bid, and we also see why the other 2 vendors were not successful. And so because it's a request for quote process, once you meet specifications, then it just basically becomes who can give me the best price. But one of the things that I've noticed in doing deep dives into some of these reports is that we have over 75% no response rate from our certified diverse suppliers. So what that means is that 75% of them are all of them are being invited to bid. 75% of them are not even responding. So that means they're not even saying, I don't provide that commodity, but thanks, think about me next time, or we're at capacity right now, but please reconsider me again next time. It's literally like it has gone into a black hole. So what we're starting to do now is reach out. If we see that a diverse supplier has been invited to bid 3 or more times consecutively, we're actually starting to reach out to them to say, why are you not responding to these opportunities? right? Because we want to know, like, did you not get it? Is your contact information not up to date? Are you not the right person to be receiving these notifications? The various reasons. Some of them are just like, it wasn't relevant to me, right? Because what we're finding is, so if you are not responding and the requirement is for a purchaser to invite one diverse supplier, and you're not interested in contracting with the city, then you shouldn't be on the list, because you're taking away an opportunity from another diverse supplier who is very hungry for the business at the City of Toronto. So if we see this happening, we give them a bit of a warning, and we'll say, listen, if we continue to see a no response rate, we're going to hide you from the list for a period of time to move another supplier up to be given those opportunities. And then, you know, in maybe 3 months from now, we'll bring you back in and you know, just sort of recirculate.
I think that's really interesting, because I didn't realize you were actually looking for a response. Sometimes, and I'm thinking from a supplier standpoint, I get an invitation to RFP. It's not up my alley, but it doesn't say if you're not interested or it's not relevant to you, please let us know. Mm-hmm. So if it's just an invitation, but there's no call to action to get feedback, that's just kind of my personal opinion and my experience, because I have been invited, and you're right, I don't reply because it's not relevant. But I don't know that, you know, whoever invited me actually wanted to know that it wasn't relevant.
I do see Connie here also. One second.
It's very new. It's new technology, so there's nothing like So I get invitations sometimes that
Well, it's just so if there is anybody that has.
Okay. So how do we, like, so often I get ones for engineering services, because that's probably the closest fit in some regards, but we're not engineering services. But peak shaving and load management in terms of energy often falls in that sort of category. So, and likewise, I didn't see anything that indicated we should reply, so I'm assuming a reply just goes to an auto dump box, so I didn't reply. But I also don't know how to clarify where we're different, because being a new type of product, it's kind of, where do we fit? Any suggestions?
And I think that's a really important point, because one of the things, again, I've only been there for 4 months, but what I have noticed is a lot of the material categories that were assigned to the suppliers were not accurate. So I don't know where that error occurred, whether it was the supplier. Sometimes it's the supplier picking categories that are not relevant. Sometimes maybe there was some mix-up in the file, but I actually literally spent, this is no word of a lie, like combing through, I think there's like 2,700 lines in my Excel file, making sure that that category makes sense based on the business profile, and updating and revising and removing those that didn't make sense, because I recognize that it could be just a mismatch in terms of the material category that is assigned to your business and what you actually provide. And we are moving to SAP Ariba, which will use the NAIS code, so we're hoping that that will help in a lot of ways, because I know the codes that we use right now are kind of just proprietary to the SAP system at the City of Toronto, and it's not including a lot of categories. So I think that hopefully we'll see an improvement there. But I think, like anything, it always comes down to communication, right? So if I see that you have not responded, right, consecutively, and I reach out to you and say, hey, you know, the city's been like sending you requests for quotes and you haven't responded, and you say, oh, that's because like we're getting requests that are totally not relevant for what we do, we can tweak things at our end, right? To say, well, maybe that category needs to be removed from your list so you're not getting opportunities that are not at all relevant. Maybe your business profile needs to include better keywords, right? So that when somebody reads your profile, it's clearer. Oh, they don't actually provide engineering services, but it's something that kind of fits within that material group. So these are all the little things that we are prepared to do to help support the certified diverse suppliers that we work with.
Alexander, we do have one more in the back there. Sorry.
I have a question. Over the whole contractual journey, from the time a city floats an RFP and gets to the day of signature, suppose you have 1 or 2 or 3 suppliers who are supporting diversity, and once they are inside the door, when they have given their quotes and all, how are they treated differently in terms financially, and second is contractually? When I say contractually, are you more benign to them in terms for the contractual terms like limitation of liabilities, indemnity versus another supplier? Or if I am a diversity supplier, I am quoting at $110 and the other supplier is probably quoting at $105. How many extra miles can you walk to a supplier who is a diversity supplier? He is quoting at 110 and probably he is having relatively lax limitation of liability, indemnity, IP protection. So actually you are potentially walking towards the domain of risk. So how many miles can you walk towards that, like the city walks?
I need to make this comment because I think it's really important that everyone in this room, if you are certified, understand your certification is your ticket into the game. You still have to compete, level play. Your pricing, your service, all of that quality has to be as if you were just bidding against another supplier. So, and I just feel like it's really important I say this because the way you were asking was, their pricing is, my pricing is a little bit higher. Essentially, if we're leading to, if you get certified, will you get preferential, consideration? The answer is no. You got in. You got an invitation. Now have fun.
You've already cut the line, right? So the certification is essentially it's your opportunity to get into the door. You still have to compete as an entrepreneur against other entrepreneurs. One of the best things that I actually saw when I went to so the City of Toronto does an amazing session at the beginning of every month about working with the city and how to properly work with the city. And one of the best things that I saw there was we are your bonus points. So you still have to compete competitively with the same quote and same RFP, but what certification does is it gives you those extra bonus points. So if somebody is quoting at the same price as you, same quality as business, but you have a certification, you will get the contract because it's the same everything else, but you are a diverse supplier. If you're quoting higher and you have less quality work, you're not going to get the job just because you're diverse, right? Diversity is we're the cherry on top, right? Great.
Yeah, exactly. So just to close off on that, I think everyone else has answered the question exactly how I would have. So again, with requests for quotes, it comes down to price, right? 3 bids minimum. Once you meet specifications, lowest price wins it. When you get over $100,000, so this is when the City of Toronto now issues a call document on its public portal. So there are points now in RFPs if you are a certified diverse supplier or if your organization is prepared to develop a supplier diversity program or even an employee diversity program. So it's not a requirement. There's an encouragement. So basically there's language put into the RFP over $100,000 that basically includes that language. And there is an evaluation scorecard, and you will be given up to 5 points if you are a diverse supplier. So there is some additional benefits there, but when it comes to the request for quotes under $100,000, it's pretty much best price wins it. Again, I think it's been said, I won't continue batting at that, but the advantage to your certification is that you could potentially be invited to bid, whereas you might not otherwise ever be given that opportunity. And I also want to just not dismiss the under 300,000. So I know I've got one more slide here, and I'm going to try and be really quick. Some numbers are missing, which is really weird. But anyways, that's okay. I'll try and wing it. So as I mentioned, City of Toronto spent $2.6 billion in 2018. And of that, the low dollar value amounts, which would be the $3,000 to $100,000, there was about $3 million that were awarded to certified diverse suppliers. The total dollar amount that was issued to diverse suppliers was actually $44.5 million. So that's the amount that is above the 100,000. So that's significantly more than the within policy threshold of 3 to 100,000. But there's also, again, in 2017-18, there was about $500,000 worth of business below the 3,000. So this is where, if you're a really small business, just trying to kind of get a foothold into procurement with the City of Toronto, so under 3,000 is basically, like, it's not competitive, right? It's just somebody saying, I've got this small amount of procurement I need to do, I'm going to go to a certified diverse supplier list, and I'm just going to give that business to this supplier. And we have several small social enterprises or other diverse suppliers. That's where they operate, and they're perfectly happy in that space. I mean, if they're invited to bid, that's great, but they're happy to get $100,000, $3,000 contracts a year with the City of Toronto in catering, let's say. So again, I mean, these are still areas, so we've got something for kind of everybody. We've got something for the really small businesses just trying to get in. We've got somebody, you know, something for the $3,000 to $100,000 contracts, and then the larger contracts over $100,000. Of the $44.5 million, $27.5 million of that was awarded to a women-owned diverse supplier in the engineering industry. So that's pretty amazing. You can just see here, 662 low dollar value contracts were awarded to certified diverse suppliers. 32, that's the number of unique diverse suppliers that were given those contracts. And then in the 711 contracts issued between 0 and up. So I think what's interesting there is we have like 500 certified diverse suppliers on our list, and when you look at the actual number that have been awarded contracts, it's less than, 10%, right? Mm-hmm. So why is that? So that number needs to go up. Obviously, all of these numbers need to go up. That's kind of what I'm hoping to do in the next whatever, how many years I'm there, because it tells me that we've still got a long way to go, right? When we've got that much procurement happening, and you know, even $44.5 million is a small amount when you look at the overall picture. I think that's it.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna pounce on Javier here in a second, but on that note, that brings up a really, really great point. So why are there so few diverse supplier contracts being awarded? Well, out of the 3 identifying and certifying agencies, CGLCC is the only one that deals in hidden barriers. Right? You can Google and find if there is an LGBT, or if there is a women-owned business. You can Google and find if the business is owned by a person of color, but you can't Google and find if somebody is queer and they are an entrepreneur. And so what we rely on is essentially we need word of mouth, we need ambassadors, we need people to be talking about CGLCC and showing up into the room and breaking down those barriers with us so that we can find entrepreneurs to fill those gaps. Because one of the reasons that number is so low is because there's industries that aren't covered by our membership or our diverse organization because we can't find those entrepreneurs. And we help getting into those organizations to find where we can assist them in bridging those gaps and ensuring that LGBT diverse suppliers or other certified diverse suppliers are in those rooms and bridging those gaps for our corporate and government agencies so we can ensure that we're taking care of our own. Now, Javier has had a really great opportunity to pitch for the city, and you've been successful with some of your contracts with the city, correct?
Well, with the city, not yet.
Oh, hey-oh. That was a push, Alexander. So, but tell me about your experience in pitching with the city and what you've gotten to know about working with the city.
Well, my experience with the city has been very positive, albeit short. I would say this is the only public service organization I know, and we're in the vendor of record for the province of Ontario, and we're also in pro services for the federal government, so I know all 3 levels. But this is the only organization in the public sector that actually gives you extra points. So to your question back there, sir, you don't get a break on the price, but you do get a little bit extra points. And there is definitely appetite. I think this number here, 47, that should go up. It's in it's our responsibility to make it happen, right? So we have to make a good pitch and present ourselves the right way. I mean, you still have to do the work, but they're open, and I see that as a big opportunity. Right. So that's my experience with it.
Great. We only have a couple minutes left, and I'm going to just kind of steamroll ahead, and I'm sorry about that, but there's a couple things that I want to bring up before we say goodbye for the morning. The first is, I look around the room, there's a lot of different people and small enterprises that are joining us here for the first time, which is really, really exciting. And some people may be in this room thinking, how do I fit into this picture? You know, when I look at, you know, somebody like Jaleesa, who you'll be hearing speak tomorrow at the Shopify CGLCC talks. Jaleesa is founder of Tony Marlowe Clothing Company. So when you look at, you know, something like your business, let's talk about uniforms, right? And wait a second, the city's not the only people that supply uniforms. We have numerous other organizations in here that supply uniforms. So when we look at leveraging each other as our biggest business builder, it's our biggest also missed opportunity. Some people take a look around the room and they say, oh, that person's in this space, this person's also in marketing. I'm applying for that same contract with them. You know, we really want to encourage the incubator and the ecosystem of utilizing each other as your best asset, your biggest advocate, and your biggest resource, right? We can only do so much. We are your network. It's up to you what you do with that network. You really need to make that network work for you. You know, if you are in catering and events, you know, teaming up with each other to go after those RFPs and going after those larger contracts. I had a really great conversation with Darren here from Terrain Flowers. It was our first time actually meeting in person. I went to his floral shop out in North York for what was going to be an hour meeting. We were there for about, 2.5 hours, just shooting the stuff and having a really, really great chat about, different business building ideas. And the biggest thing that we took away from it was, wow, I never knew that this was already available to me, right? All of these things are available to you, and they're in these rooms. And over the next 2 days, that's what we really hope that you take away from this. That's why we have put our blood, sweat, and tears into putting this fantastic 2 days for you together. So you get the opportunity to educate, incubate, create, and build capacity within each other and really celebrate being a certified diverse supplier, as well as a member of our community, and how we can support each other and gay it forward. Stacey, go ahead.
I think that it's also really important to make these connections, because he knows how to become a vendor of record. I don't work with cities or the government yet. I don't know if I will, but I know how to get into, let's say, financial institutions. If that's daunting, it's really hard to get an MSA. It's really hard to get on the vendor of record. There's always ways that you can sub-vend. So don't write yourself off as it's too big. If you really want to get in there and you know someone who works at RBC who has a master service agreement, we can help you get in the door if you want to subvent through us. So there's always connections to be made, and there's always ways that you can get in the door if the traditional methods are not the easiest, if that makes sense. So make sure that you're talking to people. Make sure that you know what you want and where you want to go and how you want to go there.
Awesome. Just to wrap things up, also how we go here, some of our vendors also subcontract. So that's another really big opportunity for you to look at by looking at some of the different agencies that you may be able to support if you are too small to go after those large clients, making sure that you're reaching out and saying, hey, by the way, I'm a graphic designer out in Toronto. I would love to be, if you have any work coming out this way, if you need any assistance, I'd love to help you. A lot of our fantastic volunteer marketing team, Krista and Dan, they do a lot of that work, and they also work with some of our other agencies as well. So again, leveraging your membership. As I wrap things up, I do want to follow up. So Kathy's amazing capability statement talk earlier. If there's anybody here that's interested in learning further on how to build a proper capability statement, please come up and sign up through me. We'll actually be doing a follow-up exercise with the head of procurement from Kellogg Company, Deborah Quaid, who's also a CGLCC board member. Herself and Kathy and myself will be conducting a kind of follow-up exercise later on in the month of June to help you build a proper capability statement, answer any questions you may have around the capability statement, and assisting you in that process. Again, thank you so much for attending today's session. I would like to thank my esteemed colleagues here in panel. Yes? I hope that today was worthwhile. I hope that this morning was you got something. We hope that we sprinkled a little bit of something for everybody in there for you. If you have questions, comments, concerns, don't hesitate to reach out. My information is in your program guides or at cglcc.ca, where you can register to be a Certified Diverse Supplier. Thank you so much and enjoy the summit. Take care. We did it.
Just so everyone's aware, lunch is going to be served at 11:45 in the main room on the second level. So just make your way down there and find a seat around 11:45, and lunch will be served shortly.